Thank you, Madam Chair. So this bill, when we ran Learns, we knew that we would come back this session and have some cleanup language, just as we do with anything that is small, but especially something as large as the education overhaul that Learns was. And so what we've learned in the last year through EFAs is there are a few things that we need to tighten up, and I think it's important to do it now before, and not 10 years from now. We just need to make sure that parents are utilizing funds in a way that is consistent with education and not using funds on, the majority of their funds on something like private lessons for tennis or, D1 memberships and stuff like that. We've seen a lot of different things circulating Facebook, and we just want to ensure that students are getting different, diverse educational opportunities, but that it is consistent with the intent of Learns and is focused on education. So that's what a lot of this is. If you look at page 3, we talk about the cost of transportation, and we just say not to exceed 25% of the funds that student is eligible that year. And then right below that on line 18, we talk about reasonable costs not to exceed 1/6 of the funds allocated to a student's account in that fiscal year for extracurricular activities. That is consistent with how we do things now in public schools. If, money follows the student, if they do course choice or sign up for an extracurricular activity, a sport or quiz bowl or whatever, that 1/6 of that funding follows that student to that school for that activity. So we just try to be consistent in that manner to ensure that there was flexibility in how funds were being spent on what it could be spent on, but that it was couldn't be 90% of the funds spent on an extracurricular activity. If maybe your homeschool curriculum is only $1,000 or something, then you have all this money left to spend on other things that maybe would not be in line with how we want to spend money. So we also kind of give a time frame of when students can apply. Like I said, we extended that. It's February 1 to May 1. And then we discuss order of students. If in that window we exceed the number of students, then we put an order on, starting on page 9, of how those funds will be distributed to students. So I'm happy to take any questions, or maybe if you want to speak to anything else that I may have missed, we're happy to take any questions.
Questions from the committee? Are there two people to speak for?
Paula Bean.
Paula Bean. Right there. Speak against the bill. You would turn that on now. It takes a minute.
Oh, there we go. Hello. My name is Paula Bean. I am a homeschool mom of 4 brilliant children. They were here earlier, but they have had to leave to actually go to a tutoring session. I began my homeschool journey in 2018 when my oldest daughter entered pre-K. I attended public school my entire educational career, and I actually taught high school English at Quitman, oddly enough, for 2 years after graduating college. It was during this time that I decided to homeschool my children. While I adore teachers, students, and administration, and I do support the public school education method, there are many cracks in the system, as we saw earlier, that were revealed to me during my time of teaching, which inspired me to homeschool. We are also a family who is receiving EFA funds for one of our children. My other children have already been approved for next year, and they are very anxious about receiving their funds and the opportunities that this will open up for them. As a member of the homeschool community, there was extreme distrust of the EFA funds when they were first presented. In general, there is extreme distrust of the government as a whole in the homeschool community, if I'm honest. After lots of research, I decided to become an advocate for the EFA. I've had multiple conversations with moms about the blessings that the EFA has brought to our family and the possibility of blessings it can bring to theirs. I'm here today for two reasons. One is I'm fighting for my children. The other one is I'm afraid that I have convinced a whole lot of families to trust the EFA program and that this committee is going to make me out to be a liar. Now, I don't want to take up much of your time, so I want to give you three things that the EFA has done for me and for my family, and then I want to share three quick concerns on what I am about some of the amendments that I saw in the bill. The first was that it was a much-needed stamp of approval from the government on our choice to homeschool. Homeschool parents must deal with an extreme amount of pressure and criticism from society. The EFA, in a way, told us as homeschool parents that we were seen and that we Arkansas government. Second, the EFA provided resources for my son that we either could not have provided or we would have had to sacrifice more to provide. I am talking about access to the internet, technology, STEM kits, and basic supplies. We knew the sacrifice we were making when we decided that I would stay home full-time and homeschool. However, with the EFA funds, Arkansas politicians partnered with homeschool families to develop future citizens of this great country who could be prepared to contribute to this country. You may think I'm over-exaggerating when I say that purchasing a pencil is providing for our country and providing for successful citizens, but the research on the positive emotional, mental, and physical outcomes of having at least one parent at home and homeschooling is everywhere now. Now, I have seen public school teachers, admin, and parents become incredibly offended by the mention of homeschooling, and I get where they're coming from, but you can't deny that the research is there. Finally, my child is currently able to take part in art and music classes at local businesses. We are contributing to the local economy, and also he is learning at an amazing rate. He has some learning disorders that would have affected him in a normal public school setting, but through music, art, therapy, project-based learning programs, and tutoring, almost entirely provided for by the EFA, he has begun to thrive in both social and educational settings. The team of people that I have been able to put together for this child have benefited him in ways that we may not fully recognize until he is much older. The opportunities my children will have in the future are unmatched to anything I experienced growing up. While my children are benefiting, our state is also developing a generation of Arkansans who are incredibly well-rounded. With that being said, I have three concerns about some of the amendments being discussed in the committee. Again, I'm not fully familiar with how all of this works, so please excuse me if I've made a stupid comment. But EFA funds, according to what I read, can no longer be used to pay for access to the internet and technology. Now, this language was confusing to me when I read the amendment. But like I said earlier, we live in a rural area, and the only internet available for us was Starlink. Now, we have to pay for our monthly bills, and we do that just fine. However, buying the equipment for Starlink was an issue. We went a long time without proper internet, and my children suffered for it. Thanks to the EFA funds, they now have vital access to the internet. In addition to this, my child has been given access to technology that allows him to do tutoring online and play educated games related to our curriculum, especially reading and learning foreign languages. I am begging you to reconsider this amendment. We live in Arkansas. Many of our children receiving these funds will live in rural areas. It makes no sense to block them from accessing the internet or technology that we live in a time where technology is the method. We want our Arkansas children to be as advanced as possible. Also, the amendment to the art, music, and STEM classes is not only confusing to me and to my husband, but could be devastating for students who may live in an area with a school that doesn't provide certain types of art, music, and STEM classes. I actually got an email while I was sitting in here from one of the vendors that we use saying that they may or may not be able to provide for students using EFA funds next year, depending on what happens in this committee and throughout the rest of this legislation. Now, why should a student suffer because of their local school district doesn't offer something? And how are we even going to keep up with what district provides what? A student cannot control what their local school does or does not offer, and you want to tell the child that they cannot use the funds to access other opportunities because of something that they cannot control. A dear friend of mine has a child that has decided she wants to learn the harp, which is very confusing to me. Our local school does not offer harp classes, so now with the language, that child may or may not be able to continue using her AFA funds for her lessons, even though the cost of those lessons is no more than taking violin lessons. Finally, the language around using the fullest extent of the law to retrieve funds used incorrectly from the parents is a tad terrifying. Homeschool families as a whole do not trust you. If you add language in there that they may be prosecuted to misusing funds, you will see the program crumble. People will not join. And if you want the program to crumble, then you can leave that language in there. But I want you to remember that I have 4 children who desperately want this program. And there are hundreds like them who are also counting on you guys. I agree that the majority of the funds should not be being used on private lessons. I also agree that the funds should be allocated for necessary educational material. However, we already have to get approval for everything that we purchase. There are so many strict guidelines in place already for purchasing items with these funds, and honestly, they are getting more strict and more limiting already. If a mistake is made in purchasing an item, I don't understand why the blame is put on the parent when the program has to approve the funds. The ability to misuse funds is already so incredibly slim. However, because of the language, our family has already discussed pulling out of the program. I've been telling moms all year that it's okay to trust this program, and now I'm hesitant to trust it myself. This is what I want to say, and this is what I'm begging you to hear. You have the opportunity to really invest in all of Arkansas's children. You have the opportunity to really invest in all of Arkansans. You have the opportunity to tell a huge group of people that you really are on their side. Or you can continue to live in a bubble and ignore the children that are waiting for their turn with these funds. Please consider what 10 years down the road will look like. When my children are graduating and they can say, my parents and my state raised me. They fought for me and gave me the opportunities to be the absolute best I could be. My parents and my state realized that education is not one size fits all, and they decided to invest in my future as an individual. My parents and my state gave me the chances to succeed as well-rounded, educated citizens, and I'm proud to be a product of my parents and my state. Or they can say, my state didn't trust my parents, so I no longer trust my state. Thank you. Yes. For me? Oh, gosh.
Senator Bryant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for coming down, taking the time to testify on this. I think you said it from homeschool co-ops and homeschoolers. I think you said exactly what they have been telling me for the last couple of weeks about the concerns about this bill. My question for you is, at some point, the vendors are going to show us, the legislature, receipts of items that we cannot be complicit in. And whether the vendor made a mistake and let those receipts through, whether there wasn't clear direction, what can you do as maybe a homeschool parent, member of a co-op, member of an online community to, and I tell this to a lot of industries and a lot of different groups that come down here and advocate for something. If you don't police yourself, we will police.
Right.
We will police you.
Right. Yeah.
And so I guess my question is, what can you do to combat this? Because eventually the department will come to us with receipts if they haven't already been able to present that now, to say, hey, we're going to run out of money faster than we anticipated because there's these items that do not benefit a homeschool parent, do not benefit certain people. So can you address that for me?
Well, I can just address that from my point of view, which I am very opinionated, but we're given an allocated amount of money. So whether or not the funds run out or don't run out does not really matter on what we're spending because we only have a certain amount of money to spend. Okay, now the vendor system on the class wallet is what we're using now. So vendors list certain objects that we are allowed to purchase from that vendor. We cannot purchase anything outside of what is on that vendor market. The other thing that the class wallet has is that there are a list of vendors providing services. Now, the committee, the board, whoever approves those vendors, they're responsible for approving those vendors and what they are allowed to offer. We get to take advantage of those. The only thing that we have is that if we purchase curriculum or we pay tuition, online tuition for like online classes or whatever, we may be able to submit those for reimbursement. But then those things have to be approved by the board. So our hands really are tied as to what is approved and what is not approved. Now, I understand this first year we were kind of all guinea pigs. And so there were some things I saw that probably wasn't appropriate, that probably shouldn't have happened. However, the board that has all the Zoom calls and that we have been talking with, they have been making so many changes over the last couple of months that we are already at a system where whatever the board approves, that's all that we can purchase. We can't purchase anything outside of that, other than concrete curriculum, which we can, and tuition, which we can submit for reimbursement.
Senator Sullivan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You made a statement that we legislators are living in a bubble. I think we all live in a bubble.
Right.
You have yours, we have ours, and you have your rights and responsibilities and your funds. So, this program is developing. And when you say you don't trust what's going on, I understand. I've been a huge proponent of homeschool and helped a lot of folks who worked their way through the program. So we get it. I think my bubble gets it. I hope your bubble gets it, that we're doing the best we can to work through a program that's going to take several years to, we develop the trust, and before we develop the program that meets all the needs that you might have. You made the statement also that the funds are not available. Well, the taxpayer funds are not available either. The taxpayer funds this program, and you're asking for their money. And there is oversight that goes on with our job, oversight how they spend that money. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I would also say that taxpayer money provides education for all children in Arkansas who are in the public school education.
Yeah, listen, I agree.
Right.
There's no disagreement there. This is a developing program.
Right.
And you just mentioned that there's been a lot of changes in the last few months.
Right.
We're trying to work through that. And I think your bubble and our bubble are trying to work together to achieve that.
Right.
So if right now the program won't afford HARP lessons and it won't pay for them, and it won't pay for other things, writing lessons maybe, yeah, we're working on those. And I appreciate your testimony. I appreciate your commitment to your family. I don't know how we develop that trust other than work through issues just like the senator is bringing this bill forward. Can you point me specifically to the lines that are concerned to you?
I don't actually have it in front of me.
Well, if you will send those to me, I'd be glad to help work through those.
Right.
But, when one says, I don't trust the bubble, what you have to be able to trust is what's written down.
Right.
That's enforceable through the courts.
Right.
So if you can text me the lines that you are specifically of concern, we'll try to work through them. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. And just to comment, I understand what you're saying. And I have talked to many of my homeschool parents, and we agree that there are some things that need to be shifted. There shouldn't be just a free-for-all. Like, we're not asking for that. Our concern are the certain things, like the access to technology, the access to art and music and STEM activities, and such as that. Those are our main concerns.
Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we get it. Our bubble gets it.
Right.
So we're trying to work through these, and it's not going to happen in 1 year. This program is how old? I'm asking, how old is the program?
I mean, this is what, 2 years? This is the first year that homeschool families have been able to take it.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And to say we're disappointed in what happened in year one, yeah, we all are. This is not the goal. This is year one of a multi-year program. And we'll work to develop that trust, and I appreciate your testimony and what you do. Thank you.
Senator Dotson, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And so, if I understood you correctly, I don't think you're necessarily saying you're disappointed in what's happened so far with the program.
Right.
You're concerned about what this bill could do to the program.
That is correct, yes.
And, I mean, I didn't say anything or ask any questions during the presentation, because this bill has frustrated me. There's just so many areas, I don't even know where to begin personally on addressing any of the issues I see in this. But in a global sense, I thank you for sitting here and articulating many of the feelings that I have had toward this, because it feels like we have gone so far with education choice, with Learns and an Education Freedom Account program, and we're saying, okay, come, jump on, here's the bus, it's going down the road. Jump on the bus, trust us, we're going to make sure that you have the resources needed to have education for your child.
Right.
The dollars follow the students, and we trust parents. And then this just feels like, as people are starting to catch up, especially homeschool students, and say, okay, well, we're going to trust you and get on the bus, we're stopping the bus and backing up from where we were at. Get out of the way so you don't get ran over. And so, I don't know, this, like I said, I don't know where to articulate the various problems that I have with this to even begin to get to a place. Normally I'm trying to find some areas on how to pass something that is helpful, but there are so many different areas in here, and we're so late in the session that I'm overwhelmed. I can't even begin to articulate where it is. So thank you. I appreciate your testimony, and I'm still opposed to the bill.
You're opposed to the bill? Let's see. We have Jay Robertson speaking against the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jay Robertson with Opportunity Arkansas.
Go ahead.
Thank you, committee. My name is Jay Robertson. I'm Public Affairs Director with Opportunity Arkansas. We're a state-based organization that works to simplify government and solve generational problems for the state of Arkansas. One of those deals with giving parents and kids more options. And we've made great strides on this thanks to the Learns Act. I want to be sure to thank Senator Davis in particular for her leadership on this issue. But we also speak directly with a lot of EFA families and EFA schools, and our commitment to them has been that whenever this body considers something that could make things harder for them, that we will stand up and speak. And so we do have concerns about changes in this bill to the program that could make it more difficult for families to participate. Very briefly, the bill places arbitrary caps on certain types of spending that could then permanently ban children from the program if they exceed those caps. It would allow kids to be kicked out of the EFA program if they are expelled from an EFA participating school, which would prevent those kids from having second chances if they come from troubled homes. And that doesn't put students first. I haven't seen the amendment yet. I think it's fraud. But the challenge is we're still requiring parents to maintain these expenses, threatening to kick them off the program if they commit fraud, as opposed to focusing on bad actors to ensure these funds are actually used for their intended purpose. The limitations on the enrollment window make it difficult for parents who are deciding later in the year to enroll. The bill also explicitly states in its tiered system for dispersing funds, if insufficient funds exist, they would be funded in the minority. And this reduces certainty for families that rely on the program. It sends a bad message before the program has even been fully implemented. And we're concerned that it doesn't put students first. Decision to support universal education freedom. The state committed as a whole to funding this program for Arkansas families that want it and trusting families to make these right decisions. And even with the best intentions, and I do want to say we appreciate the Secretary and his leadership on this issue, it can be easy for these new restrictions to families to become program and leave. And we would hate to see the state back on all the remarkable progress that's been made so far. We hear every day from families that whose lives have been changed because of this program, and we should trust those families, and then all other families to come later. So I appreciate your time and the opportunity to present today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Sullivan.
So first year of the program, before they were getting how much money? Or opportunity dollars. How much did they get prior to this implementation of this program?
Are you referring to EFA families?
Yeah.
Sir? Well, before the program existed, they were.
All right, so the answer would be 0. Okay, so now the upside is they're getting some assistance in a lot of things that didn't exist before. Now they're getting some assistance. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And so, when I look at it, as, is the upside greater than the downside? So if you're getting nothing, and now the state has developed a program, and I can't think of a program that's in its first year of existence where everybody goes, this is great, we're getting everything we need. I'm just not aware of that ever happening. What I am aware of is people start, and we hear the downside, and we come back in a year or two and change the program. So, again, is the upside greater than the downside in this?
Senator, I don't believe.
Downside is getting nothing.
Serving somewhere around 15,000, I believe, families around the state. And so if this bill weren't to pass, the program will continue. And so to the extent there are changes needed, I think those should be discussed with families who are utilizing the program. We've gotten lots of calls for families, not all of them could be here today, who have concerns about the way this is drafted. And so I do appreciate the sponsor taking some amendments on this and working to improve that. But to the extent changes are made, they need to be family-friendly, student-focused, and that's the reason we have concerns with it.
Okay, yeah, listen, we all have concerns. That's why the author made changes to the bill, because she agrees, and we made amendments. At some point, we have to run a bill, and is the bill worth running in order to continue and develop the program? I would say yes, and you would say?
Well, to my knowledge, if this bill does not pass, it does not end the Education Freedom Account program in Arkansas.
Okay, so I would say the bill moves us forward down a path of helping people. You would say, no, the bill doesn't move us forward in helping people. That's what I'm hearing you say. Am I right or wrong?
I think it creates challenges that can make it more difficult for families to use the program, can discourage more families from participating in the program. It limits when they can apply to become part of the program.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Very much. Any other questions from the committee?
Thank you.
Seeing no others. Are you closed for your bill?
Not yet, thank you. So here is what we know based on what we've seen in this first year. And again, this is the first year that it's been open to homeschool parents, and so we're seeing trends and collecting data and looking to have an efficient program on the front end. And like I've said, we knew that we would have to tighten up and make changes. We just needed to see how the first year went. And I understand what some of the people here providing testimony have said, that there have been a lot of changes. And I think that's natural to a brand new program in its first year. And the goal would be to make changes now on the front end so that there's not a lot of changes in years moving forward, that we get it worked out. So what we know is that homeschool families in this year have used around 61% of their allocated funds. 44% of that money is being spent on educational related items, which means 56% is not being used on education related items. EFAs have an explicit purpose of improving educational outcomes. So while flexibility is certainly a core feature of the EFA program, we must ensure that funds are being used primarily for academic growth and central to academic learning. Research and outcomes consistently show that the most impactful use of funds are those directly tied to learning: high quality curriculum, specialized instruction, access to educational tools and support. 99% we know of our parents, of our homeschool parents, are good stewards. And I would like to speak a little bit to something that one of the parents said. They are utilizing the program correctly as the law provides for that. So this bill is not to say they're doing something wrong or trying to misuse funds. It's that the definition, we didn't put any percentages or any standards around how funds could be used within that related to educational items. And we did not update our definition of extracurricular. Our definition of extracurricular is broad and works very well for public schools and private schools, but it's very different when we talk about homeschool. So there have been a lot of vendors approved, and she's right, there is a list, and they're choosing off the list, and they can't go outside of that. So this is not to say that they're doing something nefarious. It's exactly the way the law is now, which is why we need a bill like this. So we know that, almost all of our homeschool parents are good stewards and are doing things the right way and following the rules. But we just want to ensure that this program has sustainability for the long haul and ensure that there is money there being used in a correct manner. We absolutely trust families. We want parents to have the choice and to be able to provide different educational opportunities for their kids. But we also value educational stewardship, and we want to ensure that the way that we're spending money in these programs is going primarily to educational related items. And like I said, 56% is not. So that is the purpose of this. I'm trying to decide, I guess, right now if the committee is willing to work with me on some amendments that get us to 5 votes, then I'm happy to do that, because I do think that doing something is important. If we go and wait 2 more years, I don't think that that's wise. So I'm open to, pulling it down and amending if the chair is agreeable to having calling an education meeting maybe later today, if we can get something worked out. So I'm willing to hear from you guys. If you want me to close and then we can do a motion and second and have discussion and take it from there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm closed for my bill. Make a motion, do pass.
I hear a second. Second.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the motion. What's the motion?
Motion.
Do pass? Second.
Discussion on the motion. Is there a discussion on the motion?
I guess my discussion is just, Madam
You'd
Chair,
like to pull it down?
if I pull it, would you be willing to call an education meeting later today if we get to an agreeable point?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I withdraw my motion. I withdraw my motion.
Fine.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.